Hi, and welcome to another episode of the FM Channel podcast. I'm your host and one of the co-owners of Alex Young Recruitment. I'm Claudio, and today I'm lucky to be joined by FM specialist and executive coach Louisa Clarke. Louisa, thanks for coming on today.
You're welcome. It's really good to be with you.
Yeah, cool. So for anybody who hasn't listened before, basically the FM Channel podcast is I interview and chat with FM professionals to share their journey of how they got into FM and their career to date, in a bid to inspire people who are already in the industry, or maybe hopefully attract new people to the sector as well. So before we delve into how you got into FM, Louisa, I had a quick look on your LinkedIn yesterday. It says here, executive coach, leadership trainer, FM specialist, Veterans Advisory Board member, Cabinet Office, IWFM chair, Veterans and FM, IWFM judge, board member, Veterans Can, board advisor, VTRN reset.
Yeah.
And you've got a family as well. How do you fit all that?
Well, firstly, right, there's a few things missing, but also it's completely all true. And like, I'm really lucky that my kids are grown up, but also you can imagine the eye roll. As soon as I'm at home and I say to my husband, oh, I'm going to do this, I can see the eyes rolling straight away. Oh my God, here we go again. But I think, I've always been quite, high functioning. If I don't have a lot on, I'm easily bored.
Right.
So I quite like the idea of having my fingers in lots of pies.
Yeah.
But I'm also committed to follow through as well. So what I don't like is starting something and not finishing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to stand by that whole CV. I feel like this is like an episode of The Apprentice, and at some point
honestly,
you're going to try.
It's an unreal amount of things that you do. It's the most I've seen or interviewed for anyone for. That is impressive. Anyway, so where FM, you weren't always in FM. You started out in the RAF, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that, and then how you kind of went into FM.
So I'll go way, way, way back to when I was about 13, and I decided that I wanted to be an airline pilot, and I don't know why. Right?
Yeah.
I had no reason or rhyme for reason for this, but I wanted.
You must
to
have
be a
seen
pilot.
Top Gun, surely.
Yeah. Oh my God. Literally my favorite film, obviously, and the second one, and yeah, love it.
Yeah.
So anyway, wanted to be an airline pilot, had no clue about anything. I didn't have a military family or anything like that, or anybody in aviation. But actually, in my road where I lived, there was a pilot who was a fast jet pilot, and he said to me, "Go join the Air Cadets." So off I trundled to the Air Cadets at age 13, and I got a taste for military life from the cadets. Spent about 4 years there. Absolutely the best thing I ever did, because school was crap, and I loved being part of that whole team piece and the camaraderie you get from cadets. So it sort of naturally followed on that I would then try and join the Air Force. So when I was 18, I joined the Air Force. So I joined as what's called a movements controller.
Yeah.
Which is basically the movement of people and freight around the world by air, sea, road and rail. Worked with all the large transport aircraft. So it's quite an exciting job, a job that led to me traveling all around the world and doing things that most people, I was there for 10 years. And I probably experienced things that in those 10 years that some people will never experience in a lifetime. So I'm very fortunate for that. I've worked on Concorde, and I've worked with princes and famous people, and like just been to places that people don't go to.
Yeah. Where was the best place that you've been, or the most interesting or weird place?
So there's a bit, if you're in the military, so people will take the mick, because they'll say that people in the Air Force, it's all fluffy duvets and pillows, which it is most of the time. So some of the best places I've been to, Calgary, Arizona, to the Grand Canyon. I was really lucky to work with the National Guard out there, and one of the guys took his private plane and flew us to the Grand Canyon, and then to a place called Sedona, which is basically a landing strip on the middle of a rock. These things money can't pay for these things.
Yeah.
So I've been to I've been to the Falklands, the Ascension Islands. I mean, the Falklands was like, it's akin to being in prison for 4 months, but with alcohol. So lots of penguins, lots of elephant seals. But yeah, so I was really fortunate to go to some really awesome places. I mean, I've been to Canada numerous times. I've been to places like Gander and Goose Bay. Nobody goes to Gander and Goose Bay, but
Mm.
unless you're in the military.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was a very interesting 10 years when you're 18
Hmm.
years old to go and do all those things and to have those experiences.
Okay.
But in about 2004, I had my child and I got postnatal depression. And it doesn't last forever, but it lasted
Mm.
long enough for me to go, actually, my 10 years. I've done 10 years. It's time to go.
Right, okay.
So despite the fact that I'd got a commendation in the New Year's Honours list in 2004, and despite the fact I was promoted and I was doing quite well in my career, it actually ended my career. So I fell out of the Air Force, basically,
Oh, right, okay.
in 2006.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
So do you think that
uh,
you're in your head before that, were you thinking you were going to be a lifer
I
in the
was a
RAF?
lifer,
Yeah,
without a doubt. I was a lifer. It's really it's sort of sad. Well, it isn't sort of sad. It is sad looking
yeah.
back, because I don't think the military in those days, in 2005, when it was, weren't really equipped for women and children. And
Mm,
I wasn't equipped for postnatal depression, and so whilst I think it could have been a support piece, and then back into it, it became a long piece of no, I can't go back. And so really all that money that was spent on my training, all that good work that had been
mm,
done, the fact that, I'd been promoted, accommodations, those things that could have led to me having a really fulfilling career, were
yeah.
wasted in my opinion. So I left. I
Oh,
didn't
what a
hand my
shame.
ID card in. For anybody who's listening to this, this is one of those stories where you look, or you go, I didn't hand my uniform in. I didn't hand my own ID card in. I just left.
Right.
I was just discharged, and that was that. So it took me a very long time to talk about that, but it is what
Yeah,
it is. It's been a long time. It's been 20 years since I left,
yeah,
but it is a
yeah.
shame.
I wonder if there's more support now. Do you know if there is or not
Well, as you
for
know, I do a lot of, I think that's partly why I do so much work with the veteran piece, because I actually don't want people to feel like I did and come
Mm,
out. I think it would be nice if people have, and so people on the outside to kind of advise and support. But I know that the military has made, it has made, look, it's making changes, has made changes. 20 years is a long time. Are
yeah.
they there? Probably not, from some of the things that I've still seen and heard. I have been an advisor to the government on Veterans Affairs, so I do know quite a lot of the different initiatives that have gone in to support veterans. And I have been part of, more recently, a Sodexo study where they've been in a white paper to the armed forces in 2030, which is really interesting, where
Hmm.
we have been able to sit with young people who are serving today. Um, you'd like to think things have changed, but
Hmm.
nobody's perfect. So I guess there's still
Yeah,
work to do.
yeah. So your career was cut short basically. So how did you fall into FN then? At what point did you think, right, I need to get a job? This is where I'm going to go. Was it kind of loads of options, or how did
No,
you know about it?
so for a little while, I lived with my husband in when he was serving as a wife of. So I've
Yeah.
done all journey. Well, I've done the spouse bit now as well. And then I decided actually I needed to go and re-establish myself. Postnatal depression had shifted. I was feeling much better. I needed to go and do something for myself. So I said to my husband, who was not best pleased at the time, I'm going to go, well, let's go buy a house in the northeast. He was in the south in Oxfordshire. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm going to go back up north and I'm going to re-establish myself again. So he stood by me. He was like, all right then, let's buy a house in the northeast. I'll just commute every weekend, bless him. So he did that. And I came back up north, and I laugh about this now, but my first job was station manager at Durham Tees Valley Airport. And the reason I went for that job was because it was aeroplanes. So in my mind, I was like, I've worked in the Air Force, that's aeroplanes. Let's go get a job at the airport, that's aeroplanes. There's the two things. That's
That's the
great.
link.
What I eventually realised was actually clearly it was airplanes, but it was the ramp, it was the bonded store, it was the catering operation, the cleaning operation. It was everything because it's a tiny airport, right?
Yeah.
So this was my first step into FM, but I didn't realize I was in FM. So I literally fell into FM
Yeah.
thinking I was just doing what I'd done before
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
civilian world. But no, I was in FM. So I fell into FM, literally didn't choose it, it just happened. So I stayed at the airport for a couple of years.
Yeah.
A few bits and pieces happened. And then in 2011, I was approached by a recruiter who said, look, there's an opportunity with a company that's doing really well in the south. They haven't got anything in the north, but they've just won a large contract in the north.
Yeah.
They're a turnover about 20 million at the moment. They're looking for somebody who's got a transport background, somebody who can get shit done, basically.
Yeah.
And so in 2011, I took my step into Churchill Group, and I stayed with them for 12 and a half years. And that was a journey and a half,
Yeah.
I started with a £1 million portfolio. And when I departed 2 years ago, I guess I had I had nearly £100 million worth of work.
Yeah.
I just grew with the business. The business grew from 20 odd million to 330 million. In the time I was there, it was a fantastic opportunity. It was a great ride. And then, about a year prior to me departing from Churchill, I started to do some coaching qualifications. And I don't know, I think you reach a point in your life when you start wanting other things. I think the Churchill journey had been great, but I'd started to realise that, look, I really like supporting people. I like the leadership piece. I like spending time with other people and that coaching side of things. So I thought, I did the coaching qualification, and I just realised that actually, I think we'd all had COVID as well, and all those, let's reevaluate life. And I was like, actually, I want to go do something different. So, so I negotiated, talked to the team, and I left. And went and started my own business.
Right. Okay. But to come back to Churchill, you got to MD level, right?
Yeah. So
Was that MD for the whole business, or just for the north,
So,
or how was it split up?
So I started as a contracts manager, and
Yeah.
I did everything: account manager, senior account manager, regional director, ops director, then managing director. So I was the first appointed managing director outside the owners in the soft cleaning part of the business.
Yeah.
And I essentially had everything out. Well, I had a lot, but not London and not the lower down part of the south.
Yeah.
So I had everything else basically. So it's really national, and I had nationals as well. So it was a huge portfolio,
Yeah.
and a huge responsibility. And like I've said to lots of people, it was a really great experience because what I was able to do and see was a business growing. This was a growth business.
Yeah.
And it was all about being entrepreneurial inside a large organisation. And so that gave you the freedom to support the growth and to do things. And every time I took a bit more work on or something grew, we just kept replicating what had happened before. And so it was a really good experience. There were some very, very challenging times. I'm sure anybody who's been through this would testify to. But the positives far outweigh any of the negatives now. I look back at the experience fondly. I
You must
think
have some good mentors. I mean, that career sounds brilliant. Like 12 years, contract manager, ops director, and everything in between, and MD. I mean, did that come naturally to you to kind of? Are you quite? We say you get bored quite easily. Are you constantly looking to strive to for the next promotion, or did you have?
I think
brilliant mentors as well, or
I think there were probably unofficial mentors, people that I looked up to or I maybe had conversations with. But I think this is where I think some of the military mindset comes in as well, right? So not want to shy away from hard work or something difficult. So every time something difficult happened, I just stepped up. There is no ceiling in my world. So I was like, just keep going, see how far you can get. When it gets too painful, then maybe that's it. But like in my world, it was like, get the job done. And that can be really, really positive, and it can be really, really negative, because if I look back now upon my career, including my service career, my family took a back seat. I think in being an MD meant that, they were always second to the job. You put the job first when you're when you're used to getting stuff done, and that's your top priority. So I look back on it and reflect on it now. I can see where maybe I could have been slightly different. I could have been kinder to family. I could have given myself more time. And so when I'm coaching now, and when I'm speaking to people, certainly senior leaders and execs, I talk about boundaries a lot more, because I definitely didn't have boundaries,
Right.
without a doubt. And that was not just a hindrance for me, but also a hindrance for the people who worked for me, because actually now I look back at the emails I would send late at night, or the early morning calls, or when really, nobody died. So did it need to be then? But I had a culture of, especially because of the military side of things, of used to getting stuff done, of it didn't matter what time of day it was. It didn't matter how long it was going to take. It just needed to get done.
Yeah.
So I do look back at that now and think, there's a different way.
Yeah. That's interesting, because you see a lot of that on LinkedIn about, don't expect a reply. I think someone put on their signature, it was some kind of business owner said, I'm sending this, whatever time you're getting this, don't expect that I'm expecting you to reply, because this is the time that I'm kind of working. So, kind of take a step back, don't worry, because, there's a whole kind of thing about toxic bosses. I find that on LinkedIn, it's quite loud about the word toxic is overused a bit too much. Do you know what I mean? I can't believe that there's that many toxic bosses or toxic companies out there.
I think it's bad behaviour, really. I think we fall into bad behaviours. It depends on the culture of the organisation as well. And actually, I was part of creating a culture within an organisation. So actually, if I was creating some poor leadership pieces by doing that, but on reflection, sometimes you can't see it at the time. You don't necessarily, when you're in the moment of it and you live in it, you don't see that you're necessarily part of the problem. I feel quite passionately now about the coaching piece. So the coaching is clearly coaching, and obviously coaching in itself is not to solutionize for the person, but I'm quite upfront with people, and I say, look, I think that depending on who it is, there's likely to be a coaching stroke mentoring relationship, because there's a likelihood that if somebody's come to work with me, that they may be in a similar position to one I might have been in. So it feels wrong not to share a story or an anecdote or a skill or some knowledge around maybe a better way to do things, because I'm 47 years old. I've got plenty of experience now. I've learned my lesson. I've done some good things and I've done some things that could have been better.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So you left Churchill's and then you went and you've been doing, is that where you went into mentoring and coaching?
So I left Churchill
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, maybe a bit longer. I can't remember. It's all like melting into one now.
Yeah.
To set up my own business. So I set up One for the Coaching, which I'd registered and just left dormant for ages. And then I thought, you know what, let's just go do this. So I set up One for the Coaching explicitly to coach people in our industry, to high potential leaders, execs, teams, organisational coaching. So I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. I mean, what's the worst that can happen, right? It goes wrong, go get a job. I'll tell you this as well, but we'll just skim over it, right? Okay, but I also stepped into politics. So I became an approved candidate, and I had a comprehensive pass, which was effectively only 15% of people going through candidacy get a comprehensive pass.
Yeah.
But I had to make a really difficult decision: stand in the election or don't stand in the election, because stand in the election and sacrifice basically the business, because it had to be full on stand in the election, or ride this wave, because ultimately this isn't looking like it's going to be the best election. It's a difficult one to call anyway at the moment, because it's also, everything is just a mess, isn't it? So I was like, right, make this decision, Louisa. So I decided not to stand, and I think it was the right decision. So I continued with the business. So effectively for the last 2 years I've been just coaching and consulting, and it's
And
been
how's it going? Is it going well?
wild ride. So I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and that is the first 6 months are terrifying.
Right.
Literally, for anybody who's starting their own business and who has been employed, the first 6 months are terrifying because you live on this edge of what if? What if nobody comes? What if nobody wants my work? What if my work's crap? What if I can't prove ROI? What if, I don't know, all these things happen, and then what if I have to live on beans on toast? You know, I've gone from a very lucrative salary to
Yeah.
nothing, hero to
Yeah.
zero in literally 10 seconds. What happens? And I'm like, oh my God. So the first 6 months were the most terrifying. It was a wild ride. But when they say your network is your net worth, I absolutely stand by that.
Right.
For about 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, I've been working really hard on my social media and just being connected to people. I realized that being in one organization means you silo yourself, and actually that is a problem in itself because you think the world revolves around everything in that silo, but it doesn't, and there's a big wide world out there. So I had been working on my social media and my profile, and so once I became freelance on my own, people did start to come and they started to say, yeah, you know, come and work with us. So that panic of the initial, you know, was unnecessary, but I guess relevant. I'm also an associate for Kentish & Co, for Liz Kentish and
Yeah, I know Liz.
David Kentish. I love Liz. She's been an amazing, she's an amazing mentor, and she's very straight talking, which I love as well. You know, she says it as it is, and she straight away she was like, come and do some associate work for me, and I've learned an incredible amount from her and her team, and I'm eternally grateful for that experience. So I've enjoyed doing that kind of behavioral change kind of stuff as well with her.
Nice.
But yeah, so the work came, and I think, you know, the last 6 months have been the most relaxed that I've had. So I've kind of eased into it. It's okay, the work comes. Sometimes it's like buses and you
Yeah.
get too much. And sometimes, you know, it's just enough. But it's allowed me to finish my executive coaching. I did my LM7 in executive coaching. It's allowed me to do some other things as well, to do lots of the voluntary work. So the voluntary work that I do, so the veterans piece. So as the chair of the IWFM's Veterans Network, etc. So it allows me the freedom to be able to go and do those things, but also work at my own pace.
Yeah.
So I'm actually really enjoying that side of things now. I can't imagine going back into employment. Well, not yet anyway.
Yeah.
No beans on toast yet.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
sorry, I was going to say as well, and I managed to take the business from literally the pound that you start it with to 6 figures in 15 months, which I thought was pretty good going.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I was going to ask, do you focus mainly on kind of one-to-one coaching, or do you go into businesses and coach multiple people at any one time? How does that work?
I've got a bit of all actually. So I've got some global coaching with some execs. I've got some one-on-one coaching with execs here, and that I do in person. Some of it's online.
Yeah.
I do high potential leaders on one-on-one, and I'll do workshops with them as well. Or we might do some group coaching sessions. So it depends on what is asked of me. So this is no off the shelf. This is not, this is somebody coming to me and saying, we've got a problem, or we need to support our leadership team to give them the tools to do the job, because as we know, in our industry, we quite often promote because of acquisition or necessity. And of course, then we're asking our teams to do things that they don't have the tools to do the job. So I'm effectively going in and shoring it up and bringing them up to date. So it might be group, it might be workshops, it might be one-on-one. It is completely dependent on the business.
Okay.
I love ROI though, so I love showing people like how far people have gone or how far they've gone. So their achievements, how have we shifted from here to here? So, because it's, I want to see that I'm working with people and they're seeing the benefit. But
Yeah, completely.
there's some, like, already in the last couple of years, there's some like beautiful stories, wonderful, like people doing amazing things, just going from here to here and then beyond. Because once you start coaching, it's that effectively, once you start giving yourself those goals and you start working towards them, it's like the sky's the limit. So it totally depends on who it is and what they want. But I would say that 95% of my work is in FM. I do a little bit outside of the FM, because coaching is coaching.
Yeah.
But most of it is in the world of FM, and so that's good as
I
well.
was about to ask you, say coaching is coaching, so I was going to say, do you find that most businesses or people that approach you are from the softer side of FM, or kind of engineering, M&E, hard services, or a bit
of both?
Yeah.
And funnily enough, obviously I come from the soft side of soft side of FM, even though I did have a little bit of hard FM. But surprisingly, actually, unsurprisingly, it doesn't matter, because your teams are your teams, and effectively FM is FM. And as long as you understand FM, because what happens with a lot of this is, the teams want to know what first-hand experience or what they should do in a certain, what would be a good idea to do in a certain, so you see, it doesn't matter if it's soft or it's hard. Actually, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what business it is. It's just, I suppose, more comfortable for me to work in FM. And I think there's a need for it. So, I've seen it firsthand, right? You go into a tender process, you promise the client the dream, knowing full well that you're probably not going to be able to deliver the dream. And a lot of that problem is because there is just such a mismatch between what we're selling the client and what we're actually doing with our teams. We are a bit lazy as an industry. We just promote people because it's easy to promote people into a position without giving them the tools and without supporting them, without thinking, actually, is that person really right for that next step? Or were they just very good at where they were? I just think, so there is a need because of all those reasons, and that's what I'm finding, that I find that some people that I work with are forward thinking. They're business owners who are thinking, look, I'm building strong teams at the moment. How can I make my team sure my team is strong enough and resilient enough and joined up enough to deliver what I'm promising the client?
That's really interesting you say that, because I think that we're very good at thinking the only people that really need training and development are the newbies, the juniors that come in, and then you promote people, and then the training and the development kind of starts to whittle away, and they're busy doing their day job. And I spoke to a candidate the other day, and I did a post about it actually. He said I had the worst interview ever. The guy that was interviewing me just talked about himself for about 30 to 40 minutes. He didn't ask me anything about me, told me very little about the job, told me bits and pieces. It was almost just about him. So his technique was, I don't know where his head was, but it wasn't in the interview. It wasn't asking me anything. And I just thought, I think a lot of people get put into positions and say, right, you need to hire for your team. We need to hire for this. Can you go and do the interview? It's like, have you actually, interviewing sounds like it could be an easy job, have a coffee with someone, find out about them. But, you've got to prize information out of people sometimes, And
what, as well, there's a lesson in all of this as well, right? It's because and when I speak to people now, like yesterday when I was with a lot of veterans, it's like, you know what? They're not just interviewing you are interviewing them. Right? So don't be, we're very British about things, aren't we? If somebody offers you a job and you're flattered, or offers you a pay rise and you go, thank you. But no, right, I'm all for like getting stronger and tougher and negotiating your way, making sure that company is a right fit for you. Do your values align with that company's? Do their values align with you? Because if they don't, say no, walk away. That was the scenario you've just given is the red flag, isn't it? That's not the company for you.
No, if that's going to be potentially your manager and he can't even interview properly or has not had the training, then that's not his fault anyway that he's not had the training. But then that's the business. You've got to think of the bigger picture, right? I think training and development seems to disappear or get forgotten about the higher up you go.
Well,
in some businesses, not everywhere.
No, exactly. There are some great examples of businesses doing good things, right? So I shouldn't be overly critical of everybody because it's just not true. I think that the off-the-shelf training that we seem to think is the training that we need to deliver. So let's sit somebody in front of a video for 30 minutes and then make them answer some questions at the end isn't sufficient. Most of all that does, as we know, is ticks a lot of health and safety boxes and etc. That isn't it. That isn't it at all. And I think as well, we need to remember that the more senior you get, it's a change as well for you. You become that, you go from operational to tactical to strategic. And if you can't step in from operational to tactical or tactical to strategic, you're going to fail as well as the people around you. So it's actually not just the people who are joining the organisation, not even just the middle management, but the senior level management as well. Who's telling them, who's listening to them and saying to them, have you thought about that? Or is that the right way? So I think, we never stop learning, do we?
Completely. So what do you love about the FM industry then? You've been in it for a long time now. And
18 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
People. So people, that's what I love about the industry. It's people. We are an industry full of people and diverse, a diverse array of people. And the other thing I love about the industry is it's not boring, is it?
Yeah.
And that's why I champion it for veterans as well, because they come from a background that isn't boring, because shit is always hitting the fan somewhere. And this is an industry that is very much the same. No 2 days are the same. No 2 days in my time in FM have been the same. It's not, you can be a hero in the morning, zero in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's literally the way it goes. And I think that suits people like me, people who can think on their feet and are quite agile and need that. It's almost an adrenaline piece. All right, there isn't a war. There isn't, as we were talking yesterday, bins and bogs, sometimes a client ringing you up and telling you that the worst thing that's happened is that their bin wasn't emptied yesterday. And you're like, nobody died, right? But, there are things that happen in FM that do mean that it is, like I said, not 2 days the same. And of course, we touch every industry.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to touch every industry? You can be in the Shard 1 minute and you can be in, I don't know, university somewhere the next. It's just amazing. It's an amazing industry that I think is, undersold for starters.
Yeah.
The reason we started talking was because I started chomping my gums about the whole industry piece. And I think it starts right from the beginning. We don't educate people right from the very beginning. People going through school, they don't know what FM is. They don't know enough
100%.
about what FM is. So it's not a career of choice, because why would it be? Because nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
So we need to go back and shore that up. And then we need to really sell ourselves. Us that are already in the industry, we need to shout about it louder. And we need to talk about the positives of the industry. It's a lucrative industry. Anybody who says you can't make money in this industry, that ain't true.
Yeah.
We know that times are difficult and everybody's hard, everybody's, with the cost of living and all those things. But this is an industry that's growing. It's always growing. So we need to go and shout about how good an industry this is, whether it is workplace, facilities management, that whole sector is, it's huge, it's vast. We know that you can pretty much do anything in this sector. If you're an IT guru, come into the sector. If you're a specialist in health and safety, come into the sector.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of part of the reason that when I started doing the podcast quite a few years ago, I think it was like during 2020 when the pandemic hit and work wasn't as busy, and so I kind of thought I'd do the podcast, is to showcase, because I've recruited in this space for 2002. This will be my 23rd year now.
You don't look old enough.
It's unbelievable. And I've loved that there's people like yourself who have got to MD level, or Mark who's got to CEO, and you're from a military background. Some people I've met started out as a help desk or started on, front of house. I know a guy who works in-house for an office company. He's like he's an FM now, but he's been a project manager. He started out in the post room. Do you know what I mean? You can start out on the tools as an electrician and work your way up. It's open. It's like an open door to all walks, all backgrounds, to say, put your mind to it. You can do well in this industry. And like you just said, Louisa, you can do well and you can earn a decent salary. Do you know what I mean? You can get up there. If you put it in, you can get up there. But
there's
it's just
no barrier
not
to entry,
talked about. It's just not talked about enough, though. That's the thing.
There's no barrier to entry at all. It's like,
No.
it's like a total no-brainer, right? You can,
Yeah.
look, when I was younger, I wasn't particularly academic. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't particularly academic. I didn't want to go to university or anything. So, I went in the military. But when I came out of the military, again, I only had really vocational kind of qualifications and
Yeah.
things that weren't really that relevant in terms of technical
Yeah.
qualification but it didn't matter. And I know we have technical traits, so there are some relevant qualifications there. But actually, this was an industry that I could come into and I could see there was growth. I could
Yeah.
see, oh, hang on a minute, I've started here, but I can keep going and I can keep going. I can keep going. I maybe could have kept going, but obviously I decided and I have, made that decision myself that sometimes you need to step and do. I feel like I wanted to do a lot more good by spreading my wings. But
Yeah.
there's no ceiling and you can
Yeah.
really fly.
Yeah. I think, what are your thoughts on how to promote it? I mean, obviously we agree it needs to be promoted more and shouted out at kind of that school level. But I remember when I was at school, going to those careers days or whatever, I remember them being a little bit of it's basically eating up my lunchtime, my break time, and I could be like on the field playing football or just running around being an idiot. Do you know what I mean? When I was younger, the careers day or the careers evening, and there'd be a few stands to go and talk to. I was just, I don't know. I don't know. Does that still happen? You've got obviously kids who are adults now, and they're working. Where can we promote the industry more? I think that's what I'm trying to ask. Actually, is how do
Well,
we get them to know about it?
I think we all have to promote it. So first
Yeah.
and foremost, like we can all do our bit, can't we? So
Mm.
the thing I always get a bit cheesed off with as well is when we only have a network within our own industry.
Yeah.
So the first thing to do is to get out of the industry and go network somewhere else with other people, right? Because
Yeah.
when you go network in other industries and talk about your industry, hey, you know what? You'll learn something new. Also, you'll find that they've solved a problem that you've got in their industry and maybe you could bring that over. But anyway, go and talk to people in their network and spread the word, FM is a career of choice. Wait, let's talk about it a little bit more. We need to talk about the good of FM. So kids are attracted by the good stuff. So hey ho, let's just take some of these great stories, these great, these great buildings that we look after in the industry. The Shard, for example.
Yeah.
Mighty's got the Shard. It's an amazing. Imagine having, your offices in the Shard and having your, being the company that looks after that.
Yeah.
Or wherever else, a Formula One team,
Yeah.
how is that not attractive to a young person? To take all those good stories and examples and show them what a good career in facilities management can look like and how you can join that industry and touch all those different things. So I think it starts with showing people what the industry looks like and then and as I said, networking outside of your industry. And we need to think about the apprenticeship piece as well, more apprenticeships. There isn't too many things you can do from an educational side. There are, we know there are qualifications, but I'm not sure we're making it attractive enough for people to go, oh yeah, I definitely want to go do that qualification.
Yeah.
So we need the people that are here with all the lovely jobs that they've got to go and actually shout about it.
I know. I think it's a bit of it's a tough gig, isn't it? Because I think nowadays all kids have got phones, social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and I feel like my kids, they don't even know that BBC 1, 2 and 3 exist. They just watch YouTube. They're watching like these YouTubers.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's all about, obviously the views, the likes and subscribing. All these kids are on TV. Admittedly, the majority are in America or Russia, the ones that my kids are watching. It's weird. But they see this and I feel like everybody wants to be a YouTuber. Why? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like the industry needs to be promoted more on social media, on those platforms. Otherwise, they're not going to get to see it. Do you know what I mean?
You've got a point because you have to go to where people are, right?
Yeah,
you have to meet
that's
them
where they
are. And the problem
Everyone's
is as
like
well,
this.
if we're all like, if for example, our age group, right, or my age groups,
Yeah.
we're only going to see it from one perspective.
Yeah.
And so this is why diversity matters, right? Because you need diversity so that you can actually go, oh my God, we haven't thought about that either. We're not going to reach those care leavers, or we're not going to reach those people who are coming out of the justice system, or we're not going to reach those youngsters, because actually we don't think like that. And so we're not attracted, TikTok is my no, I am not going nowhere near TikTok, even if
Neither am
someone
I.
says to me. So it isn't for me, but we can find people in our industry already who can go and do those things,
Yeah.
who understand where those people are, who can sell the industry from their perspective.
Yeah.
We are often, in danger of just seeing things from that one perspective when there's much more than that.
There's
And that is what
loads.
it is.
There's
We need
loads.
to sit in a room with lots of people and go, where can you do better? Where can you go and advertise? What can you do about it?
I know.
It needs
feel
a
like
bit more than me and you.
since social media, I think all businesses, in order to attract people and kids in the younger generation, have just got to turn themselves into like marketing machines now, because
Well,
that's
AI, you know what? AI is literally the answer, isn't it? So you can either embrace it because it's happening.
I know.
So you can either try and bury your head, or you can embrace it because it is happening. It's a part of our lives. It has been a part of our lives for quite a long time now anyway, even though we think of it as being quite relatively new. I heard an interesting panel yesterday, and an interesting chat with a guy yesterday who was talking about it, and I thought, oh God, you make so much sense. We've had Google Maps and all of the other bits have been part of our life for quite a long time now. And it's just becoming more intense, but you can either embrace it or not.
Yeah, completely. So what advice, so let's talk to people now who are in the industry already or just starting out. What advice would you give to somebody who is been in the industry? They've just started out, they've said, right, I'm in it, I've been in it 2 or 3 years, I like it, I want to make my career here, I want to be successful in this career. What advice would you give to those people?
Okay, so the first thing is, I'd say continue to network, however that looks like for you, because networking means different things to different people. I always say, it doesn't mean you have to go to a room full of people, because some people don't like that, but it is the coffee chat, it is the meet up on Teams, it is the meet up for a coffee with somebody, talk to people in the industry outside of your own organisation as well as inside of it, because you get diverse perspectives from talking to other people. Learn to be collaborative. Yes, we are, we've got competitors and things, but be collaborative, because that's really the way to get on. Research, what do you want to do next? Set your goals. Where do you want to go? Research where you want to go. What do you want to do? Because you're more likely to get to it if you do that.
Yeah.
And learning. If you're sitting here thinking, I've got my qualifications and I'm done learning and that's it now, growth is not for you.
Yeah.
But you need to realise, I guess, that you're at the start of your journey, and there's a lot to learn. So go and talk to other people. Go and do that extra course. Go and do your NEBOSH or your an ILM or whatever it may be. If you just go and live, and experience things.
Yeah. Put
Way
yourself
beyond
out
where
there.
you are. Yeah, I think so. And get involved with organisations as well. Like the IWFM. I was involved with IWFM for many years before becoming the chair of the Veterans Network. I was on the Midlands Committee. I was on the Women in FM Committee. I'd done some judging. I'd sort of had my fingers in pies before I decided that I would really like for us to have a Veterans Committee. It felt like a natural progression to take on that chair position and do that. But that's because I'd had that experience of being on a committee and just, supporting people and dipping my fingers in, if you like. Go and, go do some volunteering, or I would say to people, find something that you feel you're passionate about and hone in on that. If you're passionate about women in leadership, go and support and do some things around women in leadership. So, or if you're passionate about animals, go and do something with animal talk, just
do it. as they
A
say.
lot of
There's not.
ranting from me, but that's how I feel. I feel the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
You're in charge of your destiny.
Hmm.
But you have to do something about it. Somebody isn't going to go and offer to you. They're not going to offer it to you on a plate. You need to go do something about it.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice. Brilliant, Louisa. We've covered loads actually. That's brilliant, and thank you for taking the time to come on. Keep doing what you're doing, and next time you're down in London, we'll have to meet up and have a coffee or a beer or something.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it'd be good to meet you in person.
Yeah, definitely. I'm there nearly every week.
Nice. Well, let's get a
So
date in
definitely, no,
then.
it's
That'd
been
be
a
brilliant.
pleasure to chat to you. And actually, it's been, God, time flies, doesn't it?
I know.
It feels like
Brilliant.
therapy, actually.
Brilliant. Listen, appreciate your time, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.